All right, so we back with the Uncommon Crew. We have a really cool segment that I think y'all gonna like. It's probably my favorite. It's the revolution of AI. So not only that, you got some of your favorite guests, and favorite hosts. I'm talking about myself when I say guests.
What's
but
up?
We have the guest of all guests, of guests. So good that I didn't even introduce your typical host. The one I kind of am so excited to listen to. I'm trying not to overtake the show. But the man, the myth, the king, Mr. Travis James.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yes.
Thank you. Good. Yes. Travis, thanks for blessing us with your presence.
Hey, thanks for having me here. You guys oversold me a little bit, but maybe I can grow into the role.
Undersold. You was going to beat me up if I kept going.
That's all good. That's all good.
So we bothered Mr. Travis James to help us understand AI and what's going on. Like, what can we learn from it? What's important about it, right? Why is it even relevant? And is there some other cool things that we can find out about it? So let's kind of just figure out what's going on. So before I kind of ask a bunch of questions, Mr. James, how about you just tell us kind of who you are? I know me and you were kind of chatting, but tell us who you are, what kind of got you started, like what do you do? Like who is Mr. Travis James?
Well, that's a good question. I'm still discovering that in certain ways. But I've been writing code for a long time, since I was about 8 years old. So I got started super early. In fact, I can't cognitively remember a time that I wasn't writing code. And so that's kind of unique. And it also drives kind of like my approach to technology in a lot of ways, because it's a little bit different from someone who is classically trained. And I learned from my father, who was he was getting a master's degree at University of Richmond in computer science. And so he was doing it on the weekends. He was a chemist during the day. So I would learn from him, just to spend time with him on the weekends. And it just took a life of its own. I used to be that little kid who would take your Atari or your Commodore 64 or whatever and just program it to do stuff. So I'd do party tricks like that.
It's like Tony Stark.
So cool, the Atari. Yeah.
But I never thought I would really do it for a living. My intent was to become an engineer.
Okay.
So I went to college at University of Texas, Austin,
Okay.
mechanical engineering.
Okay.
But when I got out, there were no good jobs in engineering because it was 1991, end of the Cold War. There were PhDs in the field that couldn't get jobs. So I said, well, I can write software, so I think I'll just do that. And I did that and just never left. By 1994, 5 or so, I was working for Microsoft.
Okay.
Which was still to this day the favorite job I've ever had. I mean, there were just so many smart people there. It was during a very unique time in the growth of and evolution of technology.
Gotcha.
It was right there when the internet was just taking off. And if you remember at the time, well, you guys might not be old enough to remember, but at the time it was the browser was the thing that everyone wanted to do, right? The Microsoft browser. Or actually, it was at that time it was Netscape and Mozilla and those types of things. And Microsoft was behind, and the news was always pounding on us. We're behind. In a year and a half, we had 85% market share in the browser once we decided to turn it on.
Wow. And
that's what I learned about the approach that Microsoft takes toward technology is that when they decided to turn it on, there's probably nothing you can do. And I've adopted, and they've used a very unique method of doing that, in that they own the distribution channel for everything that you want to use. Like they were on 95% of the desktops at the time.
Wow.
So if you wanted to get on, you had to use their compiler, their software, and all of that. Wow. And there's lots of ways to implement this strategy, but it's something that is that's showing up today.
Yeah.
In the music world, it's iTunes.
Yeah.
iTunes is the world's largest distributor of music now. Because of the iPod and that turned into the iPhone, right? Just totally, overtook the market because they owned the distribution channel toward the creation of your content getting to the end user, and that's where we are today with regard to things with AI, right? Because AI gives us a way to further make our content actionable, independent, and then allow you to execute strategies that allow you to take full control of it and then control its monetary value as well.
Okay. So then what made you want to say, hey, you know what, I write code, now I'm an engineer. Now apparently I would start off as a mechanical engineer, now I'm a software engineer, right? it's a lot of places you can go to that, right? Somebody watching this like, well, I could work with AWS and I could work with the cloud. I could do big data, I could, help design websites or whatever. Like, what made you say, you know what, let's go in with AI. What made you want to just transition to that? Like, what is that?
That's a very interesting question because AI has a lot longer history than people think.
Okay.
Right?
Cool.
AI coined as a phrase probably came up in the 90s or so sometime, but the truth is before that in the 1980s it was called expert systems.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Preaching now.
And so in expert systems, it was actually the first thing I ever did as a quote-unquote entrepreneur when I was in high school. My father wrote a program that would do predictions on geological data to determine whether there might be oil hidden in the rocks. Right, and then we could take massive amounts of data and process it in days versus, actually hours instead of days and weeks. And now, of course, the company that produced that data, they went out of business, but the idea that's where I was sold, right, on the power of AI. But really, the more powerful contribution to my devotion to AI came when my mother got sick. So my mother got cancer in 2008, breast cancer. And we thought that she had, kind of kicked it and everything, but in 2009 it came back. And at the time, I was working on a big AI project at the Montgomery Cancer Center in Montgomery, Alabama.
Oh wow!
And it was AI all the way. And the idea at the time was to enable different big cancer centers to share more data in real time with each other and make better decisions.
Okay.
Right? When her cancer metastasized, it metastasized to her spinal fluid, which was something that is extremely, extremely rare. Less than 1% of cases ever do that. And it's hard to pick up. And the only reason why we picked it up is because my brother is a spine surgeon.
Wow.
And during his, rotations, he had learned about this particular metastasis, and he's the one who caught it first. So the importance of that is the time that you need to act when you get sick with cancer or anything like that. Sometimes it is super critical to get early detection and to be able to get all the information you need as fast as you can. All right, including knowing what kind of regimens you might need, alternative treatments, things like this, right, which are not commonly available. So it turned out that this metastasis, I did some research on the data set that I had, and found 28 cases out of like some 50,000 in the history of that institution, where the demographics matched my mother.
Wow.
And the unfortunate thing is about half of the patients die within 90 days. But if they make 90 days, they get at least a year, and the year is pretty high quality. Sometime after that, it falls off pretty quickly. No one made it past 2 years. But it set a timeline to allow us to go travel with her. We had a fantastic time during her last year of life because we knew we had the time. We knew what it was all about, and they ended up using a chemotherapy regimen, which was one of the two that my algorithm identified.
Wow.
So that is what told me the power of AI, what potential it can have to change regular people's lives. Because she was lucky that she had a son that was a spine surgeon. She had another son who did AI in the medical business, and most people don't have that.
You said it. I'm in all seriousness. I'm sitting here thinking like, wow, like I don't know. You said it, but I'm thinking, does he even know like how blessed? Like that's a testimony in itself. Like. Yeah. Interview aside, like that's a testimony in itself that your mother had a son who that was probably his golden hour of like, I'm gonna do everything in my power to help save my mom, and put his heart and research in that. Then for you to feel like, dang, am I powerless? No, I can take this data and I can dig super deep in something that may not have been tracked well to be able to put something that you believe in to give you a time stamp and to even give y'all mom that type of assurance. Like if people don't, like if they ever want to see a miracle of God, that is God. because God gives you the knowledge and ability to do that. Like, and especially in this time period, in this age, like we were just talking about fatherless homes. Like, we're watching the fruit of that, of a man be able to help his family, his mother, and to give. And that's something you can give your kids if you have kids or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's something, and you've seen your dad do it. Like, with that, your story, just by you sharing it, that's a blessing in itself. Like, that's incredible. Like, that's absolutely incredible. Yeah.
For sure. So let me ask you. So when you saw the power of AI and you went down that journey, what also, like, what did you find more that you didn't know about AI and its capabilities as you began to dive deeper into this lane?
Good question.
Well, first of all, the compute power on the devices we were using had not reached a point yet that you could fully take advantage of it, right? In order for this program to work, it had to download 4 gigabytes of data to the iPad. The iPad did not have a GPU, a graphical processing unit, basically speeds up matrix math and things that you need to do algorithms. So we were somewhat limited in the power of the algorithms that we could use, right? But we could get all the data down, and we had figured that out and all that, but it required lots of connection and everything else. Now we have the same power that was on the big iPad there. We've got like 100 times that now just on our cell phones, right? I mean, we have the M1 chip comes with a GPU. It's got a GPU processor in it. The Android phone comes with what they call TensorFlow Lite, which is a little chip that runs algorithms. So now you have everything you need to run really complex math that's necessary for running algorithms just on your device.
So when you're using like AI now, right, you have a set way you go about using it. Like, what's something, I guess, that most of us, right, who may be familiar with it, don't know a lot about it? Like, what's something we should know right now, right? You just said, like, your iPhone has, like, this pocket-sized power of all these supercomputers. But, like, what's something we're not taking advantage of that we should be taking advantage of, or at least should know?
Well, I would say that, when you take a look at the history of AI, history of AI goes all the way to René Descartes, right, and Leibniz, way back in the 1600s, where they were using it for trying to do a translator coder machine. So it has, the idea of AI goes way, way back. So I would say that first thing is to realize just how far back the history goes, right? Second thing is to understand that there have been several AI winters, what they call AI winters, when there's a lot of activity, and then the activity basically runs out of gas, mostly because of funding that dries up, and you figure out you don't really have the computing capacity to do everything you want to do, and then there's 10 years go by, and then it starts up again, right? And through that time, there are algorithms that are from the 50s and 60s, from what's called the perceptron algorithm, the first of the big, algorithms, to now you have recurrent neural network, convolutional neural network that solve different types of problems. So I would learn a little bit about, convolutional networks are used for like images and bitmaps and things like that, signal data, audio type things. Then recurrent neural networks are used on more logic, right? You train it on a massive amount of data that then allows you to determine relations between certain factors that you've decided on the data to help you make decisions about whether a thing falls in a certain category or not. Now, the importance of that is that there's been in just the past 4 years, there's been a new advancement in technology called transformer technology, which is really a stack of a bunch of little, recurrent neural networks. But the idea is that transformers don't need as much data to train. But that's because they're pre-trained on large corpuses of information. The entire history of the internet, Wikipedia, there's a big data set called the pile that a lot of them start with, to just train these algorithms up. And then at that point, these algorithms, based on transformer technologies, can take you in any direction to generate content, generate answers to questions, and things like this.
Okay, I get you now. So you're saying, like, there's a lot of these systems now in place that is taking all this amounts of data from all these different data points. Like, picture y'all like there's a bunch of banks or a bunch of lakes or just a bunch of stuff. You're like, there's clothes everywhere. Like, how do I fold all these clothes on my couch that I just washed? You're saying that there's an advanced way that is already folding the clothes for us, that's putting them in all different ways that we want. We just have to know, what do you want, right? Do you want your clothes all by color, your shirts over here, your towels over here, right? Do you, however you want to set, because you can then what, like you said, create content like, hey, I folded all this stuff really neatly, or hey, I organized it this kind of way. But not to limit it to that, but to break it down into very like common terms. You're saying there's a lot of data out here, and there are some technology that's coming out that's processing it really quickly, really fast, to making it easy for like the everyday consumer, like just the person like, hey, I want to go to, you know, Aisle 5 or Whole Foods or Sprouts and get some groceries. Like, you know, how do I know the price of this? You're saying there's going to be cooler ways to search it, right? Because like say ChatGPT, I think a lot of folks are familiar with ChatGPT. So are you saying like AI is turning into more GPTs, or are you saying like what's something else that's happening with it in a common way?
Well, you actually said it there with regard to how you can process data to get things you want out of the engine, because and that's what we call prompt engineering. So when you had the problem of, okay, I'm looking at all these clothes here, I see all these clothes, and I want to get them separated and put in piles, right? Well, that would be a prompt that you created prompt template saying that this is a task that I want to perform. Here are the instructions, and here's the data, picture of the clothes, right? Organize this, right? And it can do it. So, but it's very important to understand both, the limitations of AI and what there is really to be scared of. What I hear a lot of times is a lot of irrational fear, right, of AI and these algorithms and things.
What do you mean by like irrational, like fear? Like, what do you mean by that?
Oh, like people think it's sentient. People think that that these machines are sentient and that they will wake up one day and be like Terminator or whatnot.
Skynet.
Yeah, make decisions like that.
Yeah.
So that's not possible. Like they can't just wake up one day and like develop a conscious off of all of the years of data and information and knowing how humans act and interact between each other. They can't copy that information data and implement it in their own system to where they can start moving, like, developing a conscious. Is that possible? That's not possible.
You can't do that. Now you can try real hard to give them the perception, right? To the illusion of that. A lot of people have done a lot of work with that. But at the end of the day, the machine is a machine, right? And it can only do what you tell it to do, right?
So what if you tell it to develop a conscious? Would it do that?
Well, it doesn't have the equipment for it, right? So like you don't have the biology, right? There's a biological component, that's a spiritual component that a machine simply doesn't have, and would have had to be God to create it.
Got you.
Hey, this man, you preaching right now? Okay, all right. Sorry, I feel like I derailed that. But so let me ask you. Let's for all the finance gurus. I know you're also a medical professional, but I don't know how much you know in the blockchain space or the Web3 space, right? So how will artificial intelligence or AI for folks? How would that impact, right, the cryptocurrency space, right? Because everybody's Bitcoin's on the rise, right? Shiba's on Ethereum's on the rise. Like, how will AI impact the crypto?
As of right now, not very much.
Okay.
All right, and the reason why is if you take a look, at what Bitcoin and those algorithms are, right? It's based on the average compute power necessary to generate a coin. And because all of this is decentralized and the ownership of these machines is distributed, we've got to compensate people for the time that you spend on their box generating the coin. That's what miners would do and things like that, right? Now, that compute power goes up and down with the power of the chips, memory, technology, all these things, right? Crypto is not an investment, right? It's not based on anything real. right? And the thing that is based on changes constantly. It's not something that you can necessarily predict outside of the supply and demand aspect that could be from the network effect, right? The network effect of people saying, oh, this, coin is good. I better go run and buy it, and then it drives the price up, right? But that price is not based on anything. At least in the stock market, you have prices that are based on fundamentals. The company's been on this long, they've made this much money, their last year's profits were up or down. You have some approximate measure. But with coin, you don't have any of that. So it's something I do believe in Bitcoin being a good way to transfer currency. I use a lot of those decentralized algorithms in our work right now, but just not, for coin purposes, basically to allow us to encrypt and take ownership of data that we have out in the internet and be able to always find it, but we need our crypto keys in order to decrypt it, right? Those types of things, so we do that all the time.
Right.
But other than that, AI needs patterns.
Okay.
In a long history or even a short history of well-known patterns that are connected to something in order to make them work.
Okay.
And the only thing only piece of it with regard to crypto that would work is just, like I said, the network effect of being able to detect because of social media, or other data that you've got to say, well, I think, there's going to be interest in this particular coin.
Got you. So would you consider AI to be beneficial for, the everyday man, or do you think it's more of a detriment to our society just in general?
I believe what I have felt a long time about every technology that's come through for the last 40 years. And that is, it depends on how you use it. You can't blame the gun. It's the person who does the shooting.
True.
That's
right.
True statement.
I mean, it's a tool.
That's fair.
It could be used for good things. It could be used for bad things. One danger there absolutely is in the use of what's called generative AI, which is based off of GPT type technologies, is the ability to generate content that sounds really good, sounds like it's logical, but it's what's called a hallucination. It's just totally made up, right? And that's the danger, because when it comes to misinformation, which is the big danger, through social media right now, AI could have a significant negative role from that standpoint.
Okay.
But only if people don't understand, what the AI is and really what to tell the difference between the truth and fiction.
So would that be the AI that does the hallucination, like putting out the false information, or would that be the person that programs the AI to push their own hidden agenda, to program the AI to respond a certain way? Because on certain chat GPTs, if you ask it a certain question, it's gonna give you a biased or answer, or it's just not gonna answer it. So is that more of the AI engine just operating in its own free will per se, or is that the programmer telling it what to do?
Well, once again, AI is not sentient, so it doesn't have concept of free will, and AI as a machine only has one single job: predict the next token. What is most likely the next token based on the inputs that I just got. That's all it does. Predict the next token. And then it'll predict it up, and it's based on the prompt. Right? So you give it, garbage in, garbage out. Right? Now, I would say that one of the problems, though, with AI is the lack of training data for non-white people. It's a humongous problem. Because, early on when they did the image generators, the first versions of the image generators out there, if you said, generate a black man without any additional, data or anything, you get something look like a character, look like Sambo or something.
Oh man,
that's wild.
But that's just because there's just the pile, all of the data that's been trained on, right, has come from television shows, articles, things that in Western media that have been out there forever. I mean, that's what it's trained on, right? There's not a lot of other examples. And so one correction that needs to be made in AI is that we need more diversity. Because without that diversity, we will never collect the necessary training sets that we need to make it truly helpful for everyone.
That makes sense. I do remember seeing something about the worry with Watson, right, IBM's Watson, in the courtroom, right, because they were saying, hey, would you rather 12 people with emotions to kind of judge you, or would you rather an algorithm that has, just pure data to be able to judge somebody's character, right, in the content or the pattern that they might do, right, in the future, kind of like predictive analytics, right? It was some consulting companies really working on that project. Now, the problem which eventually came out of that is what you just discussed, right? Where is the data set that they're pulling from? We all know that there's false information, right? There's kind of skewed information, whether you're getting it from the Department of Justice, labor statistics, or third parties, which may not even be validated or verified through another actual source, right? We're just pulling information. And then a lot of those data sources are private, we don't know, which then gives a rise to Web3 type technology, where it's more transparent on where they're actually pulling stuff, like, like Filecoins or the graph that's pulling and querying stuff like that. So then my question then would be is, what would be, I guess, some things that I guess other, I don't even like saying minorities, let's say other groups who aren't white should be just kind of conscious of, right? We're not saying to be scared of or to be necessarily worried or anything like that. God protects us. But what's something we could be, more prepared for as AI kind of rolls out, and we may see it in law enforcement, we may see it in just different polling situations or processing of an application, etc. Like, what are some things we should be mindful of and thoughtful of to prepare?
Well, a couple of things in a couple of areas. One is in healthcare. Since I have a company, Tribe Health, where that was the first, that's that was my baby there with regard to doing AI in healthcare. But the thing you have to be cognizant of is that there are algorithms there that are supposed to help diagnose that will get it wrong for certain ethnicities. Like there are certain kidney malfunctions that in us, where the numbers for what would trigger these levels are just different from white people, right? And you could be you have a chance of being misdiagnosed, if the algorithm is doing everything, right? So you have that part. Then you have what you talked about justice system. I mean, if we let IBM Watson do the oral juries, we'd be in jail right now, all of us.
For real.
I mean, we'd be guilty.
Quick,
Take me
first.
It shows the picture, it says guilty.
Get him out of here.
You speak about work as someone who works in healthcare. You've spoken about diagnosing AI helping diagnose illnesses in people. Do you think that it's going to help and replace certain human patient doctor, patient nurse interactions in the future? Because I've seen that advancement in my own field with nursing and people being scared that it might replace some jobs that normally required a human to do, but now they're saying that maybe it's not something that we need a person to fulfill anymore. Sometimes when it comes to asking people questions, getting like patient specific information from people, do you think that's going to be more of an ethical issue going forward, or do you see that more doctors, more nurses are going to have to be more person centered as opposed to task centered when it comes to the delivery of healthcare?
Well, I see AI as a terrific tool to allow caregivers, like my brother, for instance, to be able to spend more time with his patients, right? Because he doesn't have to spend so much time trying to orient his notes and everything to make sure that he can get paid later, right? That's one thing. I would say that for certain things like cancer and doing diagnosis based on MRIs and the medical imaging, these algorithms are going to do a far better job than we could possibly do. They can pick up cancer, the cancers and things in ways that a normal anesthesiologist or a normal radiologist report. That a lot of it depends on like in an MRI, which is 3D, right? Which slices are you looking at?
Right.
So I see there's a lot of improvement being made there. As far as patient care, I believe the biggest positive impact AI can have is with mental health. And that's from my own personal experience, because I have a son. He's 24 years old. and he has schizophrenia. And for it's been probably 8-10 years where we were just trying to find ways to get him properly diagnosed and all that. And then they say he has bipolar. Then it's all guesswork, right? It's all guesswork. And what I found out was that even when you nail the diagnosis of schizophrenia, only 20% of the time does a trained psychiatrist pick the right medication for that person.
Oh, wow.
And I've seen that firsthand from just working.
Why is it so hard to like figure that out when you just go by? Are all the symptoms different, or like
it's a spectrum? Mental health is something it's not as concrete as medical, because healthcare does separate psychiatric care from medical care for people. So even someone who's bipolar does not present the same way, depending on if they have mania or if they don't have mania, which means they're like super hyperactive, they're irrational, they're impulsive, but they could also be really, really calm. And if they're on the right medication, then they're fine and they can live a normal life. But that goes into the destigmatization of a lot of mental illnesses, because it just really depends on the spectrum of the illness that you are like manifesting, like what knowing the right kind of doctors, but also getting different opinions from different physicians or nurses, and knowing the right medications that work for you and your body, because a lot of people reject a lot of psychiatric medications that they've taken. I've seen that. And really, like, your home life too has a lot to do with it. And we know if there's people in your life who trigger you, that can trigger your illness too.
Yes, and I agree with everything you said. And what we experience also is that the reason why mental health patients become non-compliant, a lot of it has to do with the number of times they've been misdiagnosed and put on really powerful medications that are not for them, that they had to get weaned off of. And so as a result, it's like they have a lack of trust in the system with regard to making these decisions. And that's where I think AI can make a positive difference, because just recently, I was using my own machine learning model to manage when I think my son might need to change his medication. There are things that you can get from a person's sleep patterns, and heart rate variability is the metric you're looking for the sleep patterns, and know when they are approaching a time where they might might have an episode.
Oh, okay.
So you can then, do early detection of strategies and things like that.
So are there some just common AI tools that people probably should use, right? You kind of mentioned a couple there that I think may be helpful, right? We're not trying to, these are the best technologies, but just ones that, they're out there. So is there any that you kind of suggest, anything, just productivity and stuff?
I would say that, ChatGPT is a general good one, OpenAI's ChatGPT. Now, there's a new model that just came out a few days ago that is really, really good. It's from a company called Anthropic. It's called Claude 3. And the Opus version of that is probably currently the most advanced model there is.
Ooh.
However, this changes by the day. And it changed by the day in the discipline. There's certain models that are better for certain other things. Like there's a company in France called Mistral. They have a very good model that I like. And they are very good with languages, right? They are multilinguistic and everything else, because your prompts and everything are language based. ChatGPT is heavy English, right? So if you're operating from another language, it's not going to give you as good results. Mistral does a lot better with that.
Oh, that's interesting. So you can almost kind of see that maybe even toppling ChatGPT based off the multi-language aspect. Yeah. That changes the ball game.
So I have a question. So how could AI basically impact people's personal lives, whether it's relationships, dating, whether it's also diets, how would it impact people in their day to day?
This is what I have found to be my personal most powerful use for AI and generative AI technologies. Is the ability to learn anything from where you are. If you use the prompt properly, you can say, it's kind of like if you ever asked ChatGPT, okay, explain Einstein's theory of relativity as if I was a 5-year-old. Well, it'll provide an explanation that you will know for sure that you will understand it.
I got you.
Right? And the ability to act from where you are, to search the pile of internet information around a subject area, I believe is probably the most powerful use there is.
So right, I may get it, but for a person that's not out there, they'll get it. Like, so they'll say, well, why don't I just Google search that? Like, why would I use ChatGPT? I could just use Google and type it in. Right? What's the difference there? Right?
Well, Google gets you everything. Without connections or anything else, without ranking, I mean, your ranking actually does give you ranking based on popularity, not truth.
Okay.
Right? These are the ones that hit the most or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a hodgepodge of information with no connection to theory, no connection to, anything to help you understand it. That's what is going to be the new search engine. In fact, there's a company called Perplexity. I would suggest, checking them out, perplexity.ai. They have access to several different models, and the key to them is that they're actually after Google, right? To basically provide a super powerful, search engine that provides, AI context for the user. To help you see, he's saying, here are the links, and here's why these links came up based on what you're looking for.
That's powerful. So then, all right, that leads me to this question. So Nvidia's got a conference coming up, their AI conference in San Jose. It was pretty big. For those who don't know, Nvidia is like one of the biggest processor chip maker, one of the big, you got your local computer, pull it up, Nvidia's there. So they're having the AI conference coming up. Some things might be shared. They might be talking about Perplexity or some things, right? Are you going? Are you attending? Is there some things we need to be thinking about, right? Do I need to sign in and pay attention?
I would go if you could. I probably won't be attending that conference, but I probably will in the future. Nvidia is the 800-pound gorilla of AI right now. I mean, it's their chips that everything works off of, their GPU processors, and they have. To give you an example, the ChatGPT was trained on somewhere around 100,000 A100 NVIDIA A100 processors, which add about 15,000 apiece, right? Trained for a year, and that's how long it took, to generate the first versions.
Wow.
Now you can do them faster and more iterations. You have this new technique called mixture of experts that allow you to combine them and stuff like this. But the fact is that the A100 is the reference model for GPUs. H100 is faster, but it is so expensive that not many people are going to buy that one. But the key is to be able to take those same models and run them on consumer type hardware. Right, like what you use for your gaming cards, like the RTX, 4070, 4090, that you use for gaming and stuff. Those are perfect for also doing machine learning.
Okay, so I have a question. So what are some of the security concerns or issues that we could possibly face? I know there's a lot of the deep fakes that you see on social media, people stealing identity and things like that. So what are the things that we need to be looking out for, or how can we protect ourselves from being victim to that?
That's a good question.
That's a really good question because, it depends on what your attack vector is as far as what you're trying to protect yourself from. Certain things you can't do anything about. Someone's got a picture of you, and they can slap it on anything, right? The key is that what's going to be in effect to law enforcement is the fact that you're not going to be able to trust video so much anymore.
Wow, that's gonna be big because that for the longest that's what it is.
That's the real evidence.
I got explain that. You gotta explain that. I can't record
because it's getting harder and harder to determine when they've been altered. So you'd have to have chain of custody and some other techniques there that would actually have some things that would help with that. But they ensure that it wasn't altered, that the bit patterns are all the same, that they're originally from the camera, but you're gonna have to pay attention. Because it'd be easy for somebody to take a picture and say, "Oh, look, he was there," and try to use that as proof of something.
Yeah.
All right. So I would be careful about that. I would say just don't be in places where your image and likeness can be captured, without your permission, or is likely to be, right?
But that's basically like, that's pretty impossible, I feel like. I mean, if you on social media or anything, like, they can easily take that. And because I know there's models where you can basically create like a image of a person, like, and it can have the certain characteristics and mannerisms of a human being and talk back to you. So I see like how where it's going to where you can even copy, say like you have a deceased relative or whatever, you can make AI basically recreate that person and have the same characteristics and personality and whatever. So like, I just think that's, so you basically saying we just need to be walking around with like ski masks.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, because the truth is you're not at risk in most places, but it's just with anything else, you need to be aware of where you are, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And everything, because even when you go rolling out somewhere and everything to like go dancing or whatever, and then people start with the pictures and stuff. I'm dipping,
He's like, I gotta get out of there.
Be on there. But, because I mean, just think about this. Every picture you have now, because of AI and the way it's advancing, it's going to tag you. They're going to be able to detect, that was you, and things like that. And the less you have of that out there, the better.
Yeah.
So then now I want to ask you a nitty gritty question. So then let's talk robotics and AI, right? Kind of touch some other areas. What Jay kind of brought up that made me think about the security piece, right? You said there's no Skynet coming, right? No need to be worried. But then like I see stuff like Boston Dynamics, and then I see stuff like the what was her name, Sally or something, I forget the little robotic name. They had the woman, she kind of was talking and stuff, right? I think Singularity Net does their coin behind that. Anyway, what does my mindset need to be when it comes to robotics and artificial intelligence, right? What are some things we need to know about that?
We all saw iRobot, so
yeah,
we know how.
Thank you, Jay. Speak on
That's
I told you these robots.
Yeah, you gotta give some faith.
I told you, just don't cut it.
Well, I would say this. The thing, if you're going to worry about anything with regard to robots and their abilities enhanced by AI, it's going to be how they're trained from a moral and ethics standpoint about decision making, about when you have to choose between one person and another person. Like a good example is just some of these it's the reason why we don't have self-driving cars everywhere yet, right? Because they have a risk analysis thing in there that says that who's going to get run over. If I got to run over one person, which one's going to get it, right? And those are things that you'd rather have a human make a decision on than a machine. But that's where it is. It's just an ethics portion, especially as they have machines now, robots now, that run off of AI that can do things like clean the house, and they're strong. They can carry things around and things of this nature. They're trained so that they'll step around you and all these other things. But in all of these instances, there's a conflict somewhere. I've got to step on this person versus that person. Which one's getting it? And those are the things that you'd want to, understand. You just want to understand how they're trained on those decisions.
Okay. So I mean, I guess real quick then, like, what's maybe one way we could learn to train? Like, what would I tell my granny to learn on it? Right? I'm not gonna tell her to hop on. What would I tell my mom? And if you could, where's?
Well, most likely, if you're talking about trying to teach the older generation on it, you're probably going to have to do the research yourself and transfer that knowledge to them, because there's too many layers of abstraction, right, between what they understand and what where the world is going. So and there's just too much of a gap to make up, right? But in general, you really want to understand a term throughout the AI industry. It's called governance. Governance with any open source AI project, any AI project, is what determines how they come to conclusions from these rules. And every reputable AI project is going to publish their governance criteria.
Okay.
Or check that criteria and even test the models and stuff that come out for the compliance with that criteria.
Yeah, I know like every generation, like there's like a learning gap or whatever. So like the older generation, like even like self-driving cars is something that they just maybe can't comprehend, or they wouldn't even trust it. But you know, like younger, like Josie's kids, like, you know, when they get to driving cars, like the self-driving cars would be like a common thing. So I do think, yeah, like we do have to educate, you know, somehow like the older generation to keep them up to speed in a way. And eventually we got to do our job to make sure that we don't become that as well. So, but yeah, man, Travis, I appreciate you, you know, coming on the show. Thank you for the knowledge and all of the insight that you've given us. We are the Uncommon Crew. I'm your boy, Jay Ice, with my brother Dylan, sister Michaela, and Travis James, the one and only. We appreciate y'all tuning in with us. Please follow and subscribe at Uncommon Crew at all of our channels. We really appreciate it. Until next time, y'all be easy.
Bye,
Peace.
guys.
See?